this computer. Sure, why not? Okay, hello everybody. Well, it's 12 o'clock. I don't know what it says to be honest with you. If you could please fill out our sign-in form, and then I will let Lauren take it over to introduce our guest speaker there.
Okay, I'm not gonna get it. It'll be sure. I'm Lauren. I'm a bird rep for NAFME. This is Christian Doe. He works at a bunch of high schools in drum corps and does a lot of sound design and writing. And yeah, I'll just turn it over to him and let him talk to us for an hour about some sound equipment stuff. Thanks for coming, guys. There's food in the back if you didn't see them.
So hello, once again, I'm Christian Doe. I'm mainly a composer, arranger, and educator in martial arts here in SoCal. I work at Gar High School, Rancho Alamitos High School, Arroyo, Power Percussion, a bunch of other places. I've had a lot of different hats where it's like I was the arranger, I was the electronics guy, I'm the person writing battery in the front ensemble, the winds as well. Yeah, I've done pretty much everything, but most of my expertise is sound design and in audio. This is mainly queried towards for everyone who's like planning to become a band director or anyone who just wants to get more familiar with any of their sound systems at any of their programs. Cool. Get started.
Well, just food in the back and just sign in with the sign-in form that thumbs up.
All right. Breaking down, we're going through some basics just for everyone understands but just small audio engineering things that everyone needs to know. Then we're going to talk about all the individual parts of the sound system. There'll be sound sources, mixers, and speakers. I'm just going to give you a crash course on some audio engineering stuff. Okay. Everyone's familiar with sound waves. It's all just vibrations of air. It's all changes in air pressure. So like the sound coming out of my voice, it's vibrating the air. It's causing it to hit your eardrum, and that's what's giving you a signal like, oh, that's why I can hear it. We're talking about audio signals. The way that we're going to think about is in terms of voltage. So if I'm making a wave with the sound waves of my voice right now, it's going to cause that wave pressure change. If you do it electronically, it's like, oh, I'm changing the voltage as it travels down the wire, and then from there it goes to a speaker and translates it back into acoustic energy. So acoustic pressure waves goes into electrical energy, changes in voltage, comes out to the speaker, which will transfer it back to acoustic energy, and that'll go into your ears. It's important to think about in voltages because that's how we translate the amount of power that's going into an individual piece of wire. Okay. Talking about different levels of signal. You've probably seen, like, we all know that signal goes through wire. The amount of power is different between different devices. They're usually categorized as like line or mic or instrument or speaker level. For line level, that's pretty much like the standard level that every single piece of equipment usually uses. It will actually say on the piece of equipment, oh, this is a line level signal input. So if you're like, I don't know which cable I need to plug in, then you refer to what's written onto what's written. Line level is like the standard. So like anything that comes out of your computer or out of your audio interface or even your synths, it's probably going to be line level. Microphone level. If you have a microphone, it's probably going to be a mic level signal. It is substantially lower than a line level signal. Like you can see here is like the graph. Mic levels are like 1 millivolt, and line level signals are closer to 100 millivolts. You don't want to send a mic level signal into a line level input just because it's going to be super soft. If you do it the other way around, you might actually blow your amp. So it's like a matter like, it's not really important. Like you don't need to know the numbers of everything, but you need to actually read your pieces of equipment and be like, oh, this is line. I should make sure the signal going in is line. Does it make sense? Same with instrument level. Instrument level is commonly just used for like guitars. It's a very specific type of cable, and you only would use it in case where it actually says instrument level. Those have a different type of impedance going through it, which means it just has more resistance. Because of that, you can't interchange line level and instrument level. Because line level signals are for standard electronic devices. Instrument level cables are kind of like giant antennas, so they're not really designed to be interchangeable. Just read whatever's in the back. Speaker level, it's only used for amplifiers. So if you see like a very thick cable with a certain type of connector, that means like, oh, that's a speaker level cable. If you look at all the voltages for speaker level cables, they're substantially higher. You cannot plug in a speaker level cable or signal into something that requires line or mic. Make sense? Okay. A lot of ports will actually say line and mic. You just need to make sure that it's compatible for both. In our environment, it's pretty safe if you actually switch them, but just read your devices. Nope, this one doesn't say. Okay. Usually on your mixers though, it will say those words: line, level, mic level, and maybe a number on it. Okay. Audio cable test. You can pass this around. If you're going to be teaching, you need to be familiar with every single type of cable that you're going to be working with. This is the most standard. This is an XLR. It looks like this. If you're probably familiar with it, if you ever held a mic, you pass it around. XLR, it is a balanced cable. You look, there's 3 strands inside of it. So like there's 3 actual pieces of wire that go through. Those 3 pieces of wire are a ground signal, a standard signal, and then a duplicate of the same signal. For balanced cables, if you send 2 of the same signal and then have them flipped, it will grab the same noise going through the cable, and then if you flip it back, you will get rid of all the noise on the other end. You don't need to know anything I just said regarding balanced cables. Balanced cables, what I mean is those are meant to reduce noise. So if it says balanced, it requires at least 3 strands, and 2 of them will cancel out all the noise. Does that make sense? Unbalanced, there'll just be 2 strands. One will be ground, your standard electric ground, and just your standard signal. That will grab noise, but then there are some devices, especially older devices, that will say this is an unbalanced input or this is a balanced input. Again, read your device, use the correct type of cable. That's XLR. And I'll pass this one around. This is a TRS cable. You guys are probably more familiar with it if you work with audio interfaces. You see there's a tip, a ring, and a sleeve. That's what the TRS stands for TRS. How many inputs are there? Well, how many strands of copper are there going to be? 3. There's one for the tip, one for the ring, and one for the sleeve. So is it balanced or unbalanced? It's balanced. Sometimes it can be unbalanced, but we're not going to get. If you're worried about that, you're in the wrong presentation. Okay, go ahead and pass it around so everyone can see it. Okay. TS. So TS tip sleeve. Is it going to be balanced or unbalanced? Okay. It's usually used for also audio interfaces and smaller and older devices. You're probably asking like, why would I use a balanced cable or unbalanced cable? Usually for super long runs, like 100 foot, you want to use a balanced cable because it's just a giant antenna that's going to grab a bunch of noise. For something like that's 3 foot from like your computer to your interface, you really don't need a balanced cable. As long as you're not in a noisy environment. Okay, we'll pass it around. This is a TS cable. Okay, I don't have an example of a speak-on cable, but speak-on cables, they're usually extremely bulky, and they're only meant to be plugged into amplifiers. Those will deal with speaker level signals, and they're only mainly used for passive speakers. We'll talk about power and passive speakers later, but that's what speak-on looks like. And the last one that you'll probably see in your schools is category cable. Are you guys all familiar with Ethernet cable or like plugging in network cable? Although like yes, internet. So yeah, the internet cable that we have, that one is designed for networking. However, what's cool about it is that it's just 9 strands of copper, so you can actually send audio through it too because it's actually rated higher than an audio signal. So like instead of doing what can I get the XLR back if someone has it? Yeah, if you have an XLR. This is 3 pieces of wire, right? So you can only plug in 1 cable. If you have an Ethernet cable or a category cable, you can actually, because it has 9 strands, 1 is ground, and then the other 8 can be 4 different mics. So you can plug in 4 mics at the same time. So it's cool. We'll talk about that when we actually talk about sense. Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding cable connector types? Cool.
Really quickly, if you guys came in late, just make sure you sign in at some point in the presentation so we know how many people are getting connections. Okay.
Audio system can be broken down into 3 parts. You have all your instrumentation, all your sound sources, like your orchestration from there. You have your mixer, which actually controls what all the balance levels of everything are. And then from there, the mixer will send that out to the speakers, which depending on your program, you probably will have 2 main speakers and a subwoofer. It depends. You might also have center fields as well. But it goes from instruments to mixer to speakers. So you can break that. Okay. So I'll talk about sound sources. This is probably what is more relevant for everyone who's actually going to be teaching. The most important thing for like differentiating microphones is there's 2 main types. There's dynamic and condenser. So I'm going to talk about this one. This is a fake version of an SM57. I couldn't find my real one for some reason. But how a dynamic mic works is there's a coil inside of it. So when you plug a piece of wire through it, when you speak into the coil, which is inside the diaphragm, that coil will vibrate. It's very, very tiny, but it's enough to send a voltage difference going down the wire, and that gets sent to your mixer. Because of that, it doesn't require power because it's literally just a coil. It's literally just a strand of wire that will induce an electric field. The cool thing about dynamic microphones is I can do this and I really don't care. They're meant to be super, super sturdy because it's literally just foil. It's also meant for a lot more loud, a lot for louder instruments. So like for drums, you'll see it a lot. The other type of microphone is a condenser microphone. Condenser microphone. Let's show you this one. Okay. This is the Audio-Technica AT2035. This is like the most common condenser you're probably going to see in the activity. How condensers work is that there's this little small capacitor inside of it. And as you speak into it, the capacitor is able to flex. And because of the differential of charge that happens when it flexes, that's what creates the voltage difference sending it through the cable. Because of that, it has a capacitor which requires power to charge. So dynamic microphones, you don't need power. And for condenser microphones, you require phantom power. In their industry, it's called phantom power. It's just 48 volts, so you can supply it to whatever microphone you have. I have some recommendations here just so then you have, but realistically, any recommendations I give you guys today, you should not just buy out right off the bat. Realistically, if you're already on a program, you should hit me up or hit someone else who knows what they're doing and see what your cases are, because there are some microphones that can just do everything, and there's some microphones that are better for specific cases. But if you just want one for yourself, like here's some of them. All microphones have a different profile. So for example, for this SM57, or at least maybe not this one because this one's fake. If you notice, like the low end is actually pretty attenuated. We have more of a bit of the highs. And for the AT2035, that one's a lot more even. Having a more even profile is better, but it really depends on your use case. Like if I had a tuba, I'd probably use this as opposed to this, just so I'm going to get more low frequencies. But if I'm using my voice, I really don't need to buy a condenser. I could use my dynamic microphone. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Polarities. So every single microphone also has a shape that comes out of it for you to grab sound from it. So for this SM57, this has a cardioid pattern. It pretty much has like this giant bubble that's around it, and that's where it's going to grab the sound. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate. So, testing. Oh no. What's that? Testing. We're going to go through music for this. I did mute it. Okay, so testing. There is a giant bubble that's around this microphone because it's cardioid. If I speak into the bubble, you're going to hear pretty clearly. I think that's just stand up. The farther I go from it, the farther away I get from that bubble, you're going to hear a lot less of that sound. If I get closer, you're going to hear more of the sound source. If I go farther out this way, you're still going to get a lot less. It does, sometimes you will intentionally want to point your microphone like away from your sound source, like just a hair, but you can see the sound profile does change. Here, this is like my normal voice. If I get closer, you might probably hear a lot of it more of the lower frequencies as I get closer. This is for every single mic. Oh, it's pretty fast. But like as you get super close, we have something called the proximity effect. The closer you get to the mic, the more of the low end you're gonna get. So realistically, we're all musicians. You just have to test it out. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but you have to use your ear and give you the well. Polarity patterns. Some polarity patterns do matter though, because if you look like at a shotgun mic, for marching on for field mics, a lot of the mics that you probably see are either cardioid, will just grab the general sound in the area, or it'll be like a shotgun mic or a hypercardioid. If you look at like a cardioid, if I play into the microphone here, it's fine. If I play into here, you're not gonna get anything. One mistake I've done in the past is like I've put a field mic which has a super cardioid shape right behind our drum set player. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like whose idea was that? That guy. Like the thing is, like, it's important to look at every single microphone you have and be like, okay, what's the actual shape and profile of every single polarity pattern, so you can plan accordingly to your show. Like, it's a matter of reading everything. Okay. To be honest with everybody, My job is mainly reading the manual better than everybody else. I'm not joking. Like, so that you run to less instances of like, oh, I shouldn't put the field mic behind the drum set player. I should really put the field mic to the side of the drum set player. It'll be fine. It's away from the primary shape. Okay. There are other shapes, but they're not as relevant. Just use whatever one's going to be best for your case. It's probably going to be a cardioid or a shotgun. Yeah. Any questions regarding polarity patterns? Okay. Cool. I'm going to talk about specific instruments. It's going to be mainly the most common instruments you're probably going to see within marching band, at least. For marimbas, we usually put two mics under them. I put a suggestion on the presentation where you want to have them 12 inches down from where the keys are, and then you want them at least three distances apart from each other. The reason why is the closer that the mics get to each other, the more of the sounds are going to slightly clash, and that's what we call phasing. So there, you're going to hear a lot of weird sounds where like you're going to lose some frequencies as mics get closer. You will generally avoid that as long as your mics are at least three distances apart based off whatever the sound source is. So in this case, the sound source here is a foot apart. This needs to be at least 3 feet apart. I break this rule all the time. And honestly, you guys probably do at your programs. I've had my mics like this low before, and then I had people call me. I was like, Christian, your mic's really low. And like, yeah. But no matter what, you're just gonna have to listen to it and figure out like where it's gonna be. This is where I would start though. Cool. For most of my programs, I use a dynamic mic. It's usually just the SM57. That's the same thing that they use at Bluecoats and Cavaliers. I don't know if Cavaliers actually still does that. But some people also use the condenser mics, the same one that we have here. Like Mandarins uses these, I believe. Who else is? Fana? I forget. Either way, those are the two most common mics. And honestly, most of these recommendations are going to be the SM57 and the 2035 or 2020. Use what you have. In terms of mounting them, though, there are many ways to do it. The correct way is you need to get an actual mount that requires a clamp and like a piece of pipe that has the mic clamp, which usually comes with the microphone that you buy. That's the correct way to do it. It's also very expensive because like $50 in addition to every single mic that you have. The cheap way is you just can get a bunch of bungee cords and put some tape on it, which is what all my programs do, including power percussion. But it's a cheap way to do it, as long as you're making sure that it's dampened in some way, whether you're using the actual mic holder. Here's an example of mic holder. Something designed specifically for the mic such that you're going to reduce the frame noise. Or you have a bungee, which is stretchy, so you're not going to get that pounding sound. Okay. Any questions regarding marimbas? Yeah.
So where would you mount the mic holder, say, on the Yamaha board?
So this is the alpha board here. Wherever this note is. I usually just guess, but it's usually going to be on the resonator. I wouldn't put it on the posts actually. I would put it on the resonator. Because on the Yamaha frame, the resonators are hold where that lever stopper is, and that's going to stop the pounding sound that you usually get from every single horn. Yeah, it depends on every board though. So just double check what's going to reduce the most frame noise. Yeah.
Something that I saw at high school was they had like I don't know who invented it, but it was a microphone net.
It's the net.
Those are crazy.
So I forget I don't know the brand, but there'll be a net that literally goes from here all the way through here on the resonator, and it's a net. So like you can put a little post on your microphone, like a little ring. Let's say like this one. If I get some electrical tape and I wrap it around this microphone, and then imagine a net like this, it'll just hold like that. I never bought one.
They're like ridiculously expensive for what they are.
How much are they?
If I remember, they were like $8.
Oh, these on Amazon for 50-pack are like $20. So I mean, realistically, everyone's program scopes are going to be completely different. Some people will really have money that they can pour out. My programs are not like that. Guard High School notoriously uses a lot of jank equipment, but they're one of the better bands here in SoCal. So it's like you guys got to use what you have, and then hopefully upgrade. The only time I would only not shortcut things if you're buying actual things that need to be expensive, like wireless. We'll get to that later. Any more questions regarding marimbas? Vibes, way easier. Literally just down the middle. You don't have to worry about any weird phasing effects because there's only one microphone. It depends on how far down you want to get. Remember, the closer that you get, the more of the low end you're going to get. That's good for like if you're doing like a vibe solo. But if you actually want a little bit less of the attack of it, then bring it up closer down. Realistically though, for everybody, if your instrument sounds like crap, it's there's nothing a mic's gonna do to fix it. Yes. So like I would always focus on everything else acoustically first before even getting to anything in this in this entire presentation. Okay. Same microphones as Marimbas. I still use an SM57. I do like the sound of the condensers on the vibraphones a little bit more, but I just don't have them in my programs. But do whatever you want. There's an example of it being mounted through a clamp. I don't know on an Adams board. I think that's a Marimba actually. Either way, that's a way that you can clamp it below the board. Okay. Field mics. This is a contention for everybody. So for better or for worse, we like all of our wins now. It is just another factor that we have to consider in terms of balance. Field mics are very finicky though, because like you want to make sure that your wins are amplified, but if they sound bad, you really don't want to amplify them. Okay, so like the real goal is for all your programs, I would not touch a single field mic until your band actually sounds good. There's no point. But if you actually are at a point where the winds actually need the projection and they're actually playing pretty proficiently, the mics are helpful if you actually put them strategically in correct places in the show. All my programs, I will talk with the drill designer and tell them this is exactly where the microphones are on the field. Or I just let them know, hey, we have 5 field mics, put them wherever you want, but I just like you just need to communicate with me where that is. That way you don't need to run into problems where like, oh, I have 5 field mics, but the battery is predominantly in front of one of them. And for our activity, we generally don't like to mic our battery. The most common field mics that you're probably going to see are like the Audio Technica 440, like the NTG2 shotgun mic. That's one I use on most of my programs. They have a supercardioid pound or hypercardioid, so it's very very narrow. Like right now, if I point the microphone here, I am not going to get the person right there, but I'm definitely going to get the person here, and it's also hard to balance when there's so many people in drill. At some programs I'll have 3 and the wins sound great, so you don't have problems. I have some wins that sound terrible and I'll have 5 and I don't want to turn any of them off. But like it just happens like, oh, the person who sounds bad is literally in front of the mic. So for those type of mics, that's when I generally try to keep them very low, just because you don't want to find anything bad. These 2 mics, the Shure VP88 and the Audio Technica VP4029, these mics feel like cheating. Because how they're designed is they actually have a stereo, they're in a stereo setting. So for traditional mics that we use for field mics, they're usually pointed like this. Its mic profile is actually on the sides here. So when you play, it sounds like you're standing where the microphone is. That's where the sound source comes from. So even with low batteries coming through and like they're being amplified, it sounds like you're in front of the field, like where most of you guys would be anyway. Those mics are amazing. I feel like they're cheating. But if you can pay the $1,000 price for it, go for it. You know, you get what you pay for. It's made my life at Bar a lot easier since we got those. I got them this year, so I feel like the wins are 3 times as loud as they used to be, and they still don't sound abrasive because of the sound profile being on the sides instead. Any questions? Oh, also get a correct stand for it. They need to be high, or as high as wherever your winds are pointing. Generally, the lower you keep them, the less battery sound you get. The better the mic, though, you really don't have to worry about that. You just have to experience. By the way, mic stands probably go as high as like 6 feet, unless you buy good ones. So search up which one's gonna work. Any questions regarding field mics? Cool. Okay, wired solo mics. I love wired solo mics. It's so much easier. I don't have to worry about like someone having to deal with wireless. But I have examples here of how it's done drum corps, but they're all strategically placed. So if you look at this one, we literally planned it so it's near the pit. This back in Pacific Crest 19, we literally had the pit here, so everything could just be wired to the stage here. That's just like planning accordingly with your show. In Blue Coat 16, everyone remembers like the blinking guy. He literally has his dock from here, from whatever the dance feature is, and he just literally walks up to right here. If you're gonna have a wired solo, just plan it with your drill. That's pretty straightforward. If you are not a percussionist, that's okay. The general rule though is if you have a microphone, you just need to know where the sound comes from your instrument. Make sure it's pointing towards that area. For most instruments like trumpet, it's the bell, like that. But for something like clarinet, you gotta make sure it comes. If and I don't have a clarinet, just here. Pretend it's my clarinet. So if I play like this, the sound does not come from the horn on the bottom. It comes from the tubes. It comes from the finger holes. So when I point my mics in Agdar, I'll literally have it pointed like this, where it's like this is where the mic's pointing, and the finger holes are right here. But it really depends on every single instrument. Okay. If you want to have recommendations for specific microphones, you can always hit me up about it. But it really depends on what you have. I even have one like I literally tape the microphone on the player, so that way it never moves. Yeah. Any questions regarding wide mics? No. Cool. Wireless mics. So great contention. So I'm gonna pass this around. I don't have a receiver on me, but this is one of the wireless packs that we use at Gar High School. For all my wireless systems, you will need a microphone. You will need a transmitter. At the other end of where your mixer is, you need a receiver, and then the receiver has to send the signal to the mixer. So there's pretty much three things you need. Okay, wireless are complicated. There's a lot more moving gears to it than you expect, and it has a lot to do with like how we have radio frequencies within our area. I don't recommend buying wireless unless you actually know what you're doing. The wireless I have here is the GLX-D series from Shure. It is discontinued. We still use that GAR. I hate it because it disconnects all the time. The reason why it disconnects is because the frequency range on this on these receivers, these transmitters, are in the 2.4 gigahertz band, which is the same thing as your internet provider. Especially like nowadays, it's not gonna fly. But why we still use it is because we have it still. It drops out all the time at rehearsal, and at the show it's fine, and I get nervous every single show. But that's the result of buying bad wireless. If you do buy wireless, I recommend either the Shure ULXD or the QLXD. At least for marching band. In smaller scopes, you can probably buy something a little bit cheaper, but those are meant to be used in performances where like, oh, you're gonna be 100 feet away from your receiver. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm gonna pass it around. So get the microphone, get the receiver, bring it around. Another thing with wireless, like you need to know what radio frequency bandwidth you're going to be working with. At Arroyo High School, that was my former program. Choir program has 20 channels of ULXD wireless. It's about a $36,000 system. They bought it in the H50 band, which is not legal in their area. Please buy the correct wireless so you don't waste money and you can actually have proper frequencies. It's not that it's illegal, it's just that if they use that band, they might suddenly get like a police ticket for some reason. Because for that city, it is designated for those radio frequencies to be like for police or for TV or whatever, or for city sound. For our area, it's usually the G50 series, the G50 band for those wireless systems. Okay. Another thing, yes.
So what happens when you go to a show in an area and you say you have it set to a band that it's not allowed in that city, but it was allowed in your city?
So that's where it gets. That's where it's tricky. For high schools, it's a lot easier because you're not moving that. For drum corps, there's only a specific amount of bands that several wireless models use. There was one show in Arizona where for both Vanguard and for Pacific Crest, we had the G50 band, and for one show only, they had 0 frequencies for that one. So for both of us, we had things cut out. That was just a matter of like, okay, we can't be at this venue because like we actually can't perform. There's 3 solutions. You risk it, and hopefully you don't connect to something else, or you just have enough frequencies based on whatever wireless you have. It's pretty flexible depending on how expensive of a wireless system you have. But generally, when you buy it, you just need to make sure it's in the right. You have everything in the right frequencies for every single band you're getting. There are enough frequencies for most bands for every single city across the entire country that you will probably be fine. We only had that one show, and we have not had that show since. So hopefully you don't run into that problem. Another thing with wireless is you might think you're the only one using wireless at your program. There are other programs who are probably thinking the same thing. You need at every single show, you need to communicate with the other bands like, hey, what's your frequency? Because I don't want to use the same frequency as you. Because imagine you're playing and then suddenly you hear warm-ups through your system. It's just a matter like, oh, I didn't know you guys had wireless. It's not a super big deal for smaller circuits, and if you just know everybody. But if you're like a WBA show, there are for sure at least 30 wireless going around. You need to at least like communicate with the people around, or like hope that they're not going to step on your toes either. Usually, if everyone does their scan properly, we don't run into that issue. I could talk a lot about wireless, but just know like if you're gonna do it, there are a lot of things you gotta think about. And I don't recommend buying it until you know what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Drum set mics. Okay. For everyone, for all the questions here, you just want to make sure that you're pointing your mic towards the head. It actually does depend on the profile you want. The more resonance, you want to make sure you're in the center, so that's where we're going to get the tap. You want to get more overtones, you want to point a little bit away from the head. So if this is the head, pointing here, you're getting more overtones. From here, you're going to get more of a tone. Mess with it though. Everyone likes to mic the drum set differently. This is the mic that I like using. This is what we use at Pulse in my high schools. This microphone, we actually have a mount for it that is suspended inside of the kick drum. And it just lays in there, and that way it stays in the same place every single time. Some of the other mics that are common are like the Beta 52. That one you just want to point towards the porthole. Read your manual, because that's where it tells, but it literally will tell you like this is where you should fly to place your microphone. Or you just use your ear and figure out what the best sound is. Make sense? Okay. Snare mics, SM57, everyone uses it. Like Luca still uses an SM57 standard mic with their snare to the snare. The SM57, I'm going to talk about a lot, but it is like the standard microphone for everything. The reason why people love it is because one, it's reliable. Two, there's so much documentation of people using it that you're going to find a use case for everything. And three, I literally cannot break it. I mean, you guys can do it. Well, this is a fake one, so you can break this one. But yeah. SM57s now go for $109 each. That fake one I bought on Amazon was like $15. So do what you can. Okay. For tom mics, those are the suggestions I have. But in terms of pointing at it, I have them up here. Just make sure you buy a clip. This will go on the rim of the drum itself. It'll latch on and it'll stay put, and then the microphone will really just slot in and point it right there. Okay. Any questions regarding drum set mics? Cool. Okay. Tiffany mics. Everyone does everything different. No one has figured this out yet. So like do whatever you want. These are the mic recommendations like from all the cores. But literally everyone does everything different. Mandarin has 2 mics for theirs. They just don't have enough channels. Boston Crusaders uses 10 mics. So unnecessary. Yes, they have 5 Tiffany. They have an E. Where's Boston? They have the E604s on every single drum, pointed at the head. And on the bottom, they literally have the same mounting system. They have it on their Tiffany on every shell of the drum. I find that so unnecessary. That's pretty good. Not gonna lie. It's like it's expensive, and I don't think I would ever do any of my high schools. But like, sure. So, someone's tried it at least. Lucas, they don't have a drum. They don't have a microphone on every single drum. They only have 3 microphones in between drums, and they have 2 microphones as like overhead. You can probably see it right here. That's their overhead mic. There's like a mic between the drum there. There's a mic between the drum there. No one has figured this out. So like, just try it. Okay. Synths. Okay. I click synths. So I will switch to this one. There's hardware synths and software synths. Hardware synths are just like a standard like piano or instrument that's meant to be played live, and it only does one thing: play the synth sounds. That's it. They're nice in terms of like they're reliable, and your school might already have one. That is not the direction most people are going now in terms of running their synths. Everyone else is pretty much running MainStage, which is an Apple program, so you need an Apple device that runs through a computer, and then you have to plug in that computer with an audio interface, and then it goes to your mixer. I'm actually going to break this presentation real quick. And like I'm going to show you an example of MainStage being used. So this is the MainStage file for Gar High School, which is where I work. This is for that program. Like you see, it's pretty complicated and it doesn't look really good in this resolution. But let's say like, synth player, I need to play bassoon piccolo. Bassoon piccolo? Basis piccolo. Bassoon piccolo. I write music, guys. Okay. But bass piccolo, like, my synth one player, I can just program that specific sound. And then I can also put all my samples through it. So my synth 2 player will play this, which is just a string pad at the beginning. Okay. And even better, they can usually switch between different sounds. Sorry. They can usually switch between sounds as they go. So like, for that piccolo. Some of these sounds are not available on the computer I have right now. So I can't play through all of them, but like, here's more samples. Yeah. MainStage is extremely versatile, and it's pretty much what everyone's using now. The only group that doesn't use MainStage is Phantom, and that's because they use Ableton. So they're smart enough to use Ableton. Sorry. Yes. But pretty much everyone is using MainStage, and if you buy a pre-bought show, at least in this day and age, it will probably come with a MainStage file with everything programmed exactly the way it is. So you don't have to go in and like program it. If you're going to be teaching front on top volleys, it is good to get familiar with this program. I'm not going to talk about it that much today, but it's like a whole different 5-hour conversation. We're just gonna like everyone's going software sim, everyone's getting away from hardware sim. And also, if your computer explodes for some reason, you can take the MainStage file, bring it to your personal computer, and they can just run that for the show if an emergency happens. Stuff happens all the time. It's just having redundancies on top of redundancies. Cool. Any questions regarding SITs? Nah. Okay. Cool. Okay. All right. Talking about setting it to the mixer. So there's a lot of ways to plug in stuff. Generally, for every single season, I'll have like a list of all the instruments and how it's laid out. This is what I did for PAL 24. This is without any routing. This is like, oh, this is what the pit will look like. And I'll make a channel list so it's like, okay, I know exactly who needs to be mic'd and how I'm gonna list it. Yes.
What program do you use to like illustrate all those instruments?
Oh, I use Key. I literally use the same Keynote program that I'm using for the presentation right now.
No.
In the past, I just used Google Slides. Like, use whatever you want. I made it look nice here. It took forever. You don't have a good template. I'm sorry. Sure, I can give you guys after this presentation when I send the materials out to you guys. I can send out my materials as well, so you can just like copy and paste. I don't care. Just take them. But yeah, I literally just went in Key and like made
Keynote.
Keynote. Yeah. That's an Apple program though. Oh yeah. Okay. So, if you don't have that, use Google Slides. Use whatever you have. Like, it'll work. But early season, list everything out. Be like, this is exactly how I want the channel list to look. And then from here, we can talk about like, oh, like now I need to figure out how I want to wire it. There's many ways to wire things, and I'm not going to talk about it too in depth for today. But there's ways to make things a lot easier. One example is daisy chaining. Like if you look at this example, if you want everything to plug into the mixer, you don't want to have Marimba 1 plug in all the way into the mixer because now it's in Vibe 1's way. Does it make sense? If I put 3 XLRs on Vibe 1, that means I can just shoot 2 of them here. They plug into Vibe 1. These three cables plug into the mixer. That's an example of daisy chaining. The only problem with daisy chaining is you need more cables. Like this requires 5, that one requires 3. You do whatever you want out of your program. But I will say daisy chaining will make it easier for people to plug in. And also no one has to like shift their instrument. Everyone should just go. Set. And that's it. Other ways that you can make things easier for plugging in is that you can buy drop snakes. Drop snakes are literally just like an extension of a mixer. You plug it in the back of the mixer, and this giant box literally can be plopped anywhere in the pit. You can put it in the middle, like you have it in the diagram on the right. And it also lets to logically separate the mixer away from where the students are. Okay. Yeah, other way that you can route things. This is a modular snake system. It uses these D25 ports, and what's nice about them is from here, instead of plugging in 8 cables at once, you can just plug in this entire port in here. You don't plug in all 8 at the same time. It just speeds up the process. This is what they use at RCC and Broken City and Pulse
And Archive.
and Archive. Yeah, there we go. I actually don't like this. And the reason why is you see like that port right there, there are 25 tiny pins in there. If one of them goes, your entire cable, you either gotta bend it back or the cable's dead. So pick your poison. Okay. One of my friends, Aya Strauss, who works at Broken City, she literally says that breaks all the time. And that's why I don't use it. What's actually the direction that everyone's going towards now is this one, which is audio over category cable, Ethernet. Here's an example of one of these sticks. Ideally, like you just have 4 ports, and then you have an Ethernet cable, or sorry, a category cable. You plug in here, and you plug into your mixer. That deals with 4 channels. If you have multiple of these around the pit, you can pretty much plug everything anywhere, and it's a lot more versatile. It just speeds up the process. But realistically, you're just going to use whatever you have at your programs and just buy stuff as you go. But this is what I use. So, cool. And then lastly, stage boxes. Stage boxes will be designed for specific mixers. What's good about them is you only require a category cable, and that needs to be plugged in. If you just plug in the category fill from one stage box to the mixer, it acts like an extension. So you can like, oh, I have my mixer here on side one where like I am. My other synth player probably on side two. Instead of plugging in a bunch of XLRs or getting a snake over to them, I can just plug in the one Ethernet cable, and it's as if the mixer is there too. So, yeah. Depends on what equipment you have. Okay. Any questions regarding routing? No? Oh, okay. This is an example of like what I do for this is an example of PAL24 when I did their cabling layout. I didn't talk about cable lengths. I didn't talk about um, what cable I had. I just like, okay, this is how I probably will plug in, and this is what everyone's jobs are going to be. I have everything like neatly organized where like I know exactly what input's going to be and what outputs we're going to use. This is before we had center fills for this setup, so there's only a stereo and a sub on both. And also look at every single snake. You can see exactly where I have each individual cat snake. I have 4 channels here. I have 4 channels here. I have 4 channels here and 4 channels here. And then I have a box snake here. So all of that is labeled. So like, oh, I know exactly who needs to go where and where I'm going to plug in the back of the mixer. This is actually one of my more less detailed diagrams that I have. No, like not joking, like, but like this is how much time is put in to be like, oh, I actually need to know where everything gets plugged in. So when I run into problems, when I run into problems, I can point out like where it's going to go, and I can teach my students how to do that because it helps them with troubleshooting, and they just become better at doing the gig as well. Okay, here's a more complicated one. This is GAR this year for fall. Yes, this is my high school. Um, there's a lot of stuff. So like this is all of our wireless. These are our field mics, which while it's 4, it's now 8 because we have the stereo mics. I have a sub mixer, which is that one over there, which sends it over to here, which runs all of our balance. And every single snake, which we have 2 drop snakes, it's labeled. It's not that complicated right now. It now is complicated because now it's been the month and we change things. But you see the amount of work that's put in to be like, okay, I need to know how everything is plugged in, where each cable needs to go. Yeah, and you can see like this individual coloring on every single wire on top. That is the exact color of zip tie or electrical tape I have. So they're like, here you go. If you mess it up, it's on this. And then I'll run it like for an entire block, and they'll still mess it up, but at least they know why they messed up. Yeah.
Do you have a template that you usually use?
No, I have done this all by scratch. Just you want to steal mine? Go ahead.
So you make it from scratch? every
Yes.
single
So like
time?
I literally took the Excel template on here, put it here on Keynote, and then did it every single row and column, merged everything accordingly. It looks really nice. It takes way too much time. It also depends on the program. Like I do this for GAR. I do not do this for Angelo Almeida. They have way smaller bit. Like I can teach that stuff in probably like an hour. The GAR thing, like you're probably looking at me like I don't understand half of this. Which that's what the band director is saying too. But like at least I have that resource available, so like they can read it up. For most of your programs, though, if you have like 2 marimbas, 2 vibes, like you don't need this. It's helpful. Yeah. Mixers. Okay. All you guys are gonna have different mixers at your programs. They're gonna have inputs, outputs, input channels and strips, and a master section. I'm gonna use this analog mixer diagram as an example, but every mixer is gonna look different. So like use whatever you have at your program. Inputs and outputs, very straightforward. You just need to make sure that if you need to know how many inputs are actually in your mixer, and make sure you categorize everything accordingly. This small Yamaha mixer that I have here, like I'll have the 4 marimbas go there, I'll have the 2 vibes go there. My synth player will use the stereo input that's right there. And then I have 3 speakers with like a stereo left and right. Those are my main outputs, and then I have 1 auxiliary output for my subwoofer. So there's 3 outs and what is it? 6 8 inputs total. Okay. Next. Okay, this is probably what you're actually going to worry about when you're in rehearsal. Every single channel on a mixer will have pretty much these things. Some mixers will have substantially more things, but like everyone needs to know at least like the baseline of what a channel strip will have. Sometimes you'll have a pad. What that means is, if the mic signal is super hot, and even if I put it at the lowest setting, it's still really loud. You can turn on a pad and it'll just bring it down. That's just like if you just measure it, you can see like, okay, I just need to turn on the pad. Okay. High pass filter. So how that works is I can actually do an example here. Phi. So how do main stage again?
High main stage.
Oh, good, yes. Okay, well, I'm gonna unmute this. Ooh, you are peaking. Okay, so right now, my voice, you're gonna hear everything from this microphone, and this is the frequency band of what's coming out of my voice. What a high pass filter does is that right now you're probably hearing a lot of and probably that Christian quiet. You can turn on a high pass filter, which is only going to allow high frequencies to pass, and you can put it at a certain point. At some point, if you put it around here, like it will only let high frequencies pass, so it cuts out all the low stuff that you don't want. That's what it means when it says high frequency. When you see HPF on a mixer, that's what it's referring to. Can you see it? High pass filter. It might tell you the exact frequency it's using. On most mixers, you can adjust it actually, but from that small Yamaha mixer, that's just an analog mixer. It literally tells you, oh, 80. Like it will stop frequencies below 80 and from there. Phantom power. We talked about dynamic mics and condenser mics. Every single input on a channel can have phantom power running through it, depending on the mixer. On my audio interface right now, I have phantom power running through the other microphone. I have one channel, which is this channel. I don't have phantom power running through it. That's in here. For channel 2, which I used for this one, I can actually run phantom power separately. So you can do it for individual channels. For that mixer, if you look on the very top right, I can actually go there. It says channels 1 through 7, 8, like phantom power. For this mixer, it will turn on phantom power for the entire thing. There's no toggle on and off for individual channels. Usually, if you run phantom power through a dynamic mic, nothing should happen. Should happen. But generally, you don't want to do it because that unnecessary power is going through somewhere, and you don't want to have any shorting of any kind. Just read it. Okay. Cool. Preamp gain. So gain knob is pretty much every single mixer. When you have that port that's on the very top, it refers to the preamp or like the beginning part. There should be a little knob that says preamp gain. You're just setting exactly how much voltage increase you want from that initial point. So right now, my input gain, there's no number on this, but if I put it all the way down, my voice is still setting a voltage through this right now, like even through this dynamic microphone. The voltage still exists, but you need to have the preamp gain up in order to amplify it to a point where it's at an appropriate level. So like from here, when I'm testing it out, I'll even go to mix it together. I'll go to main stage, and if you look at my meter for input 1, it's actually getting pretty hot, and like it's almost peaking sometimes. You want to make sure that if you're generally playing their forte, so I'm going to do it pretty noisy right now. That's like staying at like -19. You generally want the forte sound to be around like -12 or -10, maybe in -6. Play around with it. But the reasoning why is when they hit super loud, you have headroom to boost up. So like here, I have 8 dB before I put.
Yeah, well, something I learned in RCC Studio break class was like between 12 and 6. I found sometimes success, but then sometimes it just gets too bad.
Yeah, really, it honestly depends on your circumstances. The thing about studio environments is that you have so much control, and live environments you have none.
Yeah.
You're in it. Everything is against you. So generally, I usually keep everything low, just so I don't cause any clipping. In studio environments, clipping is sometimes intentional. If you're in that level, this is not presentation. But yeah. Hopefully on your mixer, it'll actually say like, oh, this is a green area. On the TF, it's very easy because it has like this little thing that says orange, green, red. If it says green, that means you're probably around -12 and you're in the safety zone. You can adjust the gain accordingly.
And does that change based on if you're performing in the gym or in arena?
Not really. In this case, like no matter what, me speaking here is the same voltage that's going to go through the microphone no matter what. Even if I'm in this room, even if I'm in a gym, I would not adjust the gains accordingly. If you're in a gym though, hopefully you're getting the point of that preamp gain is just to set it at the correct overall level And then from there, you can use the faders to adjust everything. But you can do whatever you want. Yeah. I have seen people adjust it with the gain. It gets scary because you don't know if that's going to affect things later down the road because it's the beginning of your channel strip. Okay. Turning the channel on and off. Fader just tells you how much you want to amplify. Okay. I know some of you guys have a percussion class, so I get it. Okay. Sometimes you have a compressor. A compressor literally just compresses the dynamics. It's good for instances when you have a flute player just like I know that we're trying to be musical and play like piano, pianissimo to fortissimo, but for mix it's terrible. So like you use a compressor to shorten that to literally compress the dynamics, and it'll be like, okay, it just sounds good at like mezzo forte to forte. It allows all the lower dynamics to be broken up to be brought up too. So you have a flute player that's playing like a very pretty solo, the pianos will be boosted, and when they play forte, it's going to be compressed down. It depends on every mixer. Equalizer, it's that graph I showed you. You can mess with the frequencies as you go. Just for the sake of time, I won't get into it. But most of my job is compression and equalization. I really don't do that much past that. Okay. Aux sends, it's just how much you want to send to your other devices. The fader is meant for your main output. The aux sends, which is those other knobs, it's meant for other things. For like synthesizers, you want to send your stuff to both the main speakers and the subwoofer. That way you have the full range. For something like mallet instrument, you really want sub frequencies. Do you want to hear any of that? Like, yeah. So you don't send any of that to the sub. Yes.
Well, I was curious, how do you compress your mouth instrument?
I don't.
You don't.
I am one of the few people who do not compress mallets ever. I don't because I just expect my players to play well. That's my honest answer, Evan. I will only boost accordingly depending on like piano movements. I don't like using compressors on that. To be fair, it actually is a helpful tool. It really depends on the circumstance you're using. If you're for sure playing like rolls, the compressor might actually be helpful for some of that stuff. Where you need to like have that reverb low end that needs to stay low dynamically. But I don't actually. If I were to put a compressor though, I don't want to do it too harsh because you really don't want to lose dynamics, which is what we mainly get credit for in our activity. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Pan left or right. If I have a bunch of marimbas, I'm not going to individually pan like -5, -7. You're just going to run into a problem where like if you're going to run into a phasing problem, they're like, oh, you're getting a little bit more left speaker, but you don't really listen to it. It just sounds wrong. All my programs are really just dead center marimba. It just helps with the clarity. If I have one ensemble, like, oh, there's more marimbas on one side, like marimbas and vibes or something like that, then I'll go like, maybe I'll pan a little bit marimbas, but use your ear, figure it out. I don't like doing individual pans. Like, I just like all marimbas, all vibes, as opposed to like, everyone has their individual one. It just makes it easier for mixing. Okay. This is what I actually do in my job. Is the preamp good? Is it green? Cool. Do I equalize it? Are the frequencies correct? Do I feel like I'm getting too much high and too much low end? Can I lower it accordingly? Do I need a high pass filter? Then I'll compress it depending on whatever the dynamics it needs to be, like a trumpet solo. And then from there, just turn it on, turn it off for every single scene. This is literally what most of my job is every single day. It's not that complicated, but doing it every single day and actually dialing properly, it does make the band sound better. But it takes time. Like if it's taking away time from your teaching time, you don't have to get that deep into it. If you just do these 4 things, you're probably gonna get hits, to be honest. But if you can do these 4 things well, you're probably gonna get hits. Okay. Master section is just where your outputs need to go. You'll have where like for us it'll be off stereo for subs. Okay. We are actually running out of time soon, so maybe I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Okay. What mixer you should get? Don't get an analog mixer. They're great. But for activity and for scene changes and all the other things that we have going on, you need something digital. The TF series, I actually hate it because it's so simple, but it is literally the dummy-proof mixer. It is amazing for marching band for that regard. It's missing a lot of things I would want, which like input delays and other things like that. But if you have no idea what you're doing, get a TF. They're amazing in that regard. I actually prefer the Allen Heath S2 series. It has a little bit more functionality. It has a little bit more channels. By the way, hit up somebody if you need to buy something. Cool. Speakers. For the sake of time for the presentation, I'm just going to go over this really quick. Okay, speaker. All speakers require an amplifier of some kind. If I just took this input right here, I brought it to the speaker, it would barely make any noise. The reason why you're able to hear such strong amplification to the speaker is because the amplifier is inside it. There's a line level signal from the interface going into the speaker. Internally in the speaker, the amplifier inside of it is taken to a speaker level associated with whatever the speaker is. So this is an active speaker because it actively has an amplifier inside of it. There's also passive speakers, which they require an external amplifier. You might have an amplifier inside your mixer card, and that plugs in a speak-on cable over to your speaker. And what's good about that is that you only have to run that one cable over. But it really depends on what speakers you have on your program. If you have active, you need to send both power and a signal to it. If you have a passive speaker, you only need to send the signal to it because the power is being run through the amplifier. Yeah.
Do you find with passive speakers that you get more noise?
Yes. There's science reasons to it. I actually don't fully know, to be honest. But passive speakers they're not as detailed in the sense of like for active speakers, all of those amplifiers are designed for those speakers. For passive speakers, you can use whatever amplifier you want for whatever speaker, but it needs to be compatible in certain ways. Like you can use like a Crown amplifier for a Yamaha passive speaker. They are supposed to be compatible. It should just be a straightforward amplification, but there are going to be micro details lost in there. And also, passive speakers, technically you're sending an unbalanced output from the amplifier to the speaker. The reason why we don't care is because the voltage is so high, the noise is very, very negligible. At PAL Percussion, I still use the old Yamaha Club Series speakers to this day. It's a funny thing. But like, we are just using what we have. At my other programs, I have plenty of power speakers. So, yeah.
When you're I'm using active speakers and I'm getting like a lot of static. Is there something that
You got ground problems.
okay.
If you look at your problem side, this one up actually. So if you look at your normal power points, you see the 3? If you have any ground pins missing on any of your power cables, you're gonna run into ground issues because electricity needs to go somewhere. And if it doesn't go anywhere, you're gonna hear it. It's like so like that's probably there's a ground fault somewhere. It might even be an XLR. We talked about the XLR having a balanced signal. Ground signal does matter. If it's cut off, you're either not going to hear the microphone or you're going to get weird static going on.
Got it.
Yeah. So like there's something wrong in the ground signal somewhere in the pit.
Okay.
Cool. Those are just differences between active and passive. I know there's not a lot of time, so I will send this out to you guys as well. Okay. Drivers. There are 3 types. You have tweeters, woofers, and subwoofers. Subwoofers are for like low end stuff. Super low end stuff. It's meant for like really low frequency stuff. You will have a dedicated speaker for those. For something like this, which is a main speaker, the tweeter is where you're gonna get all the high frequency stuff, and the woofer is where you're gonna get all the mid frequency stuff. What's important though is mid frequencies, they're generally fine. For tweeters, if I don't point it directly at you, you're not gonna hear that frequency stuff. So for all your speakers, this is really important for like marketing band. You have to point it at the judge. I am not joking. There's so many shows I do consultation for at like actual competitions, and I have to go. Yeah, your speakers are not pointed towards me. I'm not going to hear a single thing. And the show happens like I can't hear any voiceover. It's just pointed at the right place. Your staff might be pissed if you put it in the wrong spot, but like they're not in zone. Forget about that. One way to alleviate that is center fills. So center fills help because like yeah, but you can see like I can make sure that you can fill in the center. It only gets hairy if you put too many center fills around, because the more speakers you add, the more possible phasing problems you have, because now you have frequencies clashing with each other. I only put it in addition if you feel like I'm losing the middle presence of the band. The center fill might actually help with that. They help way more than you would think. So I do recommend it if you have like a 3A band or higher. Cool. When you buy new speakers, buy active ones. Don't buy passive. I would only buy passive if you already have passive at your program and you just need to upgrade. That is another good thing about passive. If you just need to upgrade one part of it, you can do that individually instead of just buying the entire speaker system itself. These are all suggestions, mainly because that's not what I've used at all my other places. Cool. Sorry for going so fast, but okay. Yeah, but that's the general flow for like any audio setup. Like you need to know what your sound sources, what all of them do, what each microphone does. You need to know how to use your mixer. We went through like the basics of just a regular mixer. And speakers, what you get and what they're meant for. Okay. I put things to note, but the general rule for all this is you are all musicians. You have to use your ear. If it actually sounds bad, there are tools to help fix it, but like you'll know. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound like what it's supposed to acoustically. Do I need to change EQ? Do I need to change the compression? How do I make it so it sounds like that? One other thing is try not making it so it sounds better than that. Like that's not the point. The point is to amplify your band for reinforcement, not to make them sound more produced than they actually are. Okay. Cool, that's it. Yeah. Sorry for rushing the end. I know you guys have to go fast.
Quick photo before you guys all take off.
Oh,
Really quick.
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Alright. Alright, good class. Anything?
If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm always available. And also,
Even if you don't, it's going along with something.
Is the sign in on like
I didn't know you were here.
Right?
I don't know yet,
Oh,
but I saw her post it on.
okay. Wait, yeah, you're.
I have eyes, but.
Oh,